Podcast. I'm your host, Ashlyn Sadler, and today we're going to be discussing my religious hot takes. Some of these are hot takes, and some of them I would say are just kind of my general thoughts. Maybe they're all hot takes. I don't know. Please don't come for me. But I want to start off by talking about what religion I come from and kind of my background with it. I grew up as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I am still a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So this is a little bit more niche, but even if you are not part of that religion, I hope you can take something away from this episode because I think it could be helpful. There might be some things in here that you don't know what I'm talking about. Please DM me if you have questions because I know that there's some jargon that if you don't grow up with it, you're like, what the heck does that mean? And I will try my best to explain them, but even if I'm not explaining things great, please DM me and I will be happy to elaborate a little bit more. But I recently had to give a talk about the importance of church attendance. And this was probably, 6 months ago, and I've just been thinking about the talk a lot. And I remember when I first got that topic, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the last thing I want to do. I don't want to stand up there and be preaching about why you need to go to church and blah, 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 blah. And then as I started diving into it and thinking about it more, I was like, actually, church attendance has been incredibly important, I feel like, in my own life, and all I can do is share my experiences about that. So my first hot take is about church doesn't need to be entertaining. It doesn't need to entertain me. And I feel like maybe if you're inside a religion, you're like, well, yeah, ours isn't the most entertaining church. And if you're outside of our religion and have maybe gone to other churches and then you've maybe visited one of ours, you're like, what is happening? There's no bands, there's no loud, really good speakers. It's honestly about a bunch of average people who aren't used to speaking because it's just speakers from the congregation and we're not perfectly polished and we don't know what we're doing. And I think that there's actually a lot of realness in that, and a lot of as an audience member, it's kind of your job to prepare as far as spiritually and filling yourself with the Spirit to get something out of it. Because I also think that we're there to help each other grow and learn. And so there's not somebody up there preaching every week who's paid to do this and really good at it and knows how to say the perfect things in the perfect way. We're all just out here doing our best and trying to learn together and teach each other, and I think that's something really powerful about that. But like I said, I grew up going to this church, and I am extremely extroverted. I've always been extroverted, maybe not when I was a lot younger because we moved a lot and I was just kind of a more shy person. But coming into my teenage years, I was extremely extroverted, and I feel like the church is very built for people that love to be social, and I know that that's kind of unfortunate. If you don't have that personality, it could be a little harder because we are asked to give talks and asked to hold these callings and asked to be in front of people and kind of push outside of those limits. And obviously for some people that's harder than others, but for me it came really naturally. I loved having responsibilities in Young Women's and having, we'd go to an activity, and I loved when the leaders just would call me out to say a prayer or come up and conduct something because they were like, oh, we know Ashlyn will be up for it. And there was something about that just felt like, wow, they know I'm willing to just jump in and help where needed. And I was just very outgoing, always raising my hand, always volunteering to do things. and I would bring my friends to church who weren't members. I very openly talked about it with all my friends. I grew up in Spokane, Washington, so I had friends that weren't members of the church, and I would often bring them to activities. I brought them to girls' camp, I brought them to Trek. I just was very open about my religion and I don't know, I was just a very confident person as a teenager, and but then there was like a shift after I got married, because I got married very young. I was 18 years old when I got married, and moving from a single ward into a family ward, and basically going straight from like attending Young Women's to now being in a married ward with a husband, I felt very insecure. I feel like I did not listen growing up. I don't know what it was, but I clearly did not pay attention, because I swear every lesson I'd go to, they would start out by being like, well, we all know the story of blah, 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 blah. And that was like my cue to tune out, because I didn't know what they were talking about. I had no clue what was going on, and I felt like everyone that surrounded me, whether this was true or not, it pretty much wasn't true because not everybody did, but it felt like everybody around me had gone on a mission and knew 99% more about the scriptures and about the church than I did. So stopped raising my hand. I stopped like participating as much, because I was just very insecure about, well, what if I say the wrong thing? Well, what, I don't know that story. What if it doesn't line up perfectly? And it made me a lot quieter, and I still kept going to church, but that confidence, it was a big shift, obviously, and a big adjustment. None of my friends, none of my siblings, nobody was like married yet that was around me, and yeah, it's just a weird shift getting married that young and then feeling like, oh my gosh, now I have to like be an adult and what is happening. And then fast forward, I got pregnant at 19, had my first kid at 20, and then had 4 kids by the age of 23. And as I'm sure a lot of you know, bringing young kids to church is just crazy. So there I was sitting in church with 4 kids under the age of 4. I had 2 newborn babies, a 2-year-old and a 3-year-old, and it was a lot. I felt like I wasn't getting anything out of it. I'm like, what is going on? And then you fast forward a couple years, and then I had twin boy toddlers, and almost never could stay in sacrament meeting. Either I was out in the hallway or Waylon was out in the hallway, and then we'd have to go out with our other 2 that were really young. So I actually remember there was one Sunday when my daughter had to go to the bathroom, and I take her, and when she's getting off the toilet seat, somehow she ends up knocking the back of the toilet, like the back part of the toilet, off, and it falls, hits a pipe, starts flooding the floor, and shattered porcelain is everywhere. I am panicking. It is like 9 o'clock in the morning. Nobody is in this building besides the people that are in sacrament meeting. And so I rush back and run in a pure panic. Like, Waylon, the bathroom's flooding. And lucky for me, I have a husband who is a contractor and knows what to do. So he like runs out. We've got these 4 babies. We're like, gather them all up. We're running out. He runs in there and figures out how to stop it. But yeah, those years were just like pure chaos. I would be wandering the halls. I'd be sitting in a classroom while my twins are like knocking over every metal chair, and I'm sitting there so exhausted and wanting to bang my head against the wall. I'm just following them around the hallways. I'm sitting on the ground. It was a lot to get through those church days, and still something in me just felt like you just keep going, even when it's during their nap time, even when you don't want to go, even when it's a really hard day, even when we were on vacation, like, we made our best effort to go. And I think about that and I think, why why was it so important? And I know I grew up going to church every week, but it was like more than that, because now I'm an adult, I can make my own choices, and I still felt this push to go, even as I was questioning a lot of things about what my beliefs were. I still felt like I needed to be there. And I think sometimes when people talk about like wandering the halls with their kids, they're like, well, some of those times were the times that God spoke to me the most. And to be honest, I don't even know if I could say that. It wasn't like I was having this huge revelation while I was in the hallway chasing my boys around. But it just felt, I just came to this realization, and that I go to church for Christ. And frankly, that's it. I go to church because Christ asked me to. And because when I go to church, we take the sacrament and renew our covenants with God. And I think having that day of the week to come back and focus on Christ with a community of other people and have some of that structure really blesses our life. And even if it's not necessarily, even if you're not in my religion, I still think there is such power in attending a church and believing in a higher power and thinking of other people outside of yourself. And I wanted to read this scripture. It says, Moroni 6, 5-6, and it says, And the church did meet together oft, to fast and to pray, and to speak one with another concerning the welfare of their souls. And they did meet together oft to partake of the bread and wine in remembrance of the Lord Jesus Christ. And then this part, Elder Dallin Jokes gave a talk, I can't even remember when this was, but it says, When I say churches, I include synagogues, mosques, or other religious organizations. We are concerned that attendance in all of these is significantly down nationwide. If we cease valuing our churches for any reason, we threaten our personal spiritual life, and significant numbers separating themselves from God reduce his blessings to our nation. And I just believe in attending church so much, and I wanted to touch on sacrament a little bit more, because I feel like a lot of times we forget what the sacrament is and why we're doing it, or maybe we don't forget, it just kind of becomes like a habit. And when we take the sacrament, we're renewing our baptismal covenants. And I don't know about you, but I hadn't reviewed what those baptismal covenants were in years until my daughter got baptized last year. But I wanted to go over them. So what we covenant with God is we're coming into the fold, so we become a member of the Church of Jesus Christ. We're being called his son or daughter and taking upon us the name of Christ, and we're committing to bear one another's burdens, that they may be light, mourn with those that mourn, and comfort those who stand in need of comfort. And that's just meaning like we're serving other people, we're helping other people, we're being aware and there for other people. We covenant to stand as a witness of God at all times and in all things and in all places, to testify of Christ and set a good example at all times. We serve God and keep his commandments. So those are the covenants. And then the promises that the Lord makes to us is to forgive our sins, pour his Spirit more abundantly upon me, so give us the companionship of the Holy Ghost, redeem me that I might be numbered with those of the first resurrection, and have eternal life with Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ. So I want to focus in on pouring his Spirit more abundantly upon me. And I think our world is filled with so much noise, and it's getting harder and harder with AI and social media and all these things to discern between what's truth and what's not. And especially with like raising kids in this world, it is so hard to read one thing and go, yes, that makes sense, and then to read the opposite view and go, yes, that makes sense. And I think more than ever, we're needed to have a relationship with Christ and be guided by the Spirit, and to know that weekly church attendance can aid in that. And I don't think it's necessarily like, oh, well, if you don't go and you don't take the sacrament, then you're not going to have the Spirit with you. I don't think it's about that. I think it's about when we, like, think about in a marriage, when you first get married to someone, your communication is kind of a mess because you haven't had a long time with this person. You don't know how they communicate, but as the years go by, you get to understand how they communicate better and better and better as that relationship grows. And when they say stuff, you often can interpret it a lot better than when you first meet or start dating a person, right? I think it's the same thing with God and Jesus Christ. As we get to know them and we spend time in the scriptures and we spend time on our knees praying and we spend time like getting to know God and Jesus Christ, we build that relationship to the point where you are understanding how God speaks with you personally, how he gives you those impressions and gives you that intuition. And I feel like just having a weekly meeting with other people and to learn about others and learn how they worship Christ and all that, it just fine-tunes your ability to know when the Spirit is talking to you. And so that is my view on that. But yeah, I'm not at church because I want to be entertained. I'm at church because I want to build that relationship with God and with Jesus Christ and to be able to feel the Spirit. Okay, let's go on to learning about other religions strengthened my faith. And so that's my other hot take, is I feel like growing up, I don't know, not necessarily that it felt like people feared learning about other religions, but kind of. It was almost like, well, if you learn about other religions, then you're gonna leave our church. I don't know. Maybe that's the wrong way to say it. I don't know if other people had this experience too, but it felt like there was almost this like nervousness about learning of other religions. And as I've gotten older, I actually recently purchased Dave Butler's Holy Envy course, and it's all about the symbolism and about other religions and their symbolism and their practices and their traditions. And oh my gosh, it's the most beautiful course I've ever watched. And he talks about this idea that learning about other religious practices expands your view of God, and it starts to make you notice God everywhere. And I think when we don't hyperfixate on, well, this is the one and only true church, and how can I learn from these people, it expands your view of every single person you meet has a piece of God that and a piece of God that you can learn from about. How am I saying that? Something you can learn about God from them. There is something to learn from every single person you meet, and when you open your eyes to that, it just creates a bigger picture of who God is and how he is part of this world and part of every religion and part of every group of people and culture. And I want to live in that way. And so I think it's actually a beautiful thing to, visit mosques and synagogues and other religious places and learn about those things and learn about, and even adopting some of those different things in your own life can help your own spiritual growth if you feel like it aids in your family and your worship of God and of Jesus Christ. Okay, my next one is that my kids are allowed to think different than me. I try really hard when my kids ask me questions or when we're talking about our beliefs in the church to say I believe and not we believe, as far as a family unit, because I don't want to be oh, well, we believe this, so we're not going to do this. I like to say I believe this because of these experiences in my life, and I bear my testimony about those things to my kids, because I don't want to put my beliefs on them. I want them to come to their own conclusions. I don't want them to feel like church is a checklist of things that they're supposed to do, and this is what we believe, so this is what I have to do. I want I want them to develop a conviction of church, not and not of church necessarily, but a conviction of a belief in God and of Jesus Christ, and not compliance, not them just doing what I say because it's what we do. And I do believe in, I don't necessarily, as my kids get older and become teenagers, maybe this will change, but right now, when my kids are like, I don't want to go to church and whatever, I think it's less about me forcing them to go to this church because I have to have them believe exactly what I believe, and more about, well, this is what we do as a family. And I think structure is good for kids, and yeah, it's just one of the things that our family does, and you can learn how to hear things from people and take what helps you become a better person and to build you up and to become more Christ-like and serve. And then when you have questions, you can pray to God about those questions, and you can have questions, and that's great. And my daughter actually asked me a question the other day. Well, why, I can't even remember what her question was, but in essence, she was asking me, well, why do we believe that? And I kind of just said, well, I believe this because of da-da-da-da-da, but you're welcome to pray about that and come to your own conclusion about that. And I think a lot of times we almost like rope our kids into forcing them to believe exactly how we believe. And I want my kids, and obviously kids' brains are not fully developed, and they're going to have like an array of things, and that's fine. That's why I make church about, well, this is a family thing that we do together, and not about, well, you're going to go because this is what we believe. Yeah. I want them to grow up to choose faith and not just feel like they have to perform it, because having a relationship with Jesus Christ is not a performative thing. It's a very sacred and personal thing, and I want them to come to that with their own conclusion. And it's the same thing with like my daughter getting baptized. If one of my kids were like, no, I'm not ready to do that, I don't want to get baptized, I would absolutely respect that. I don't think they have to get baptized at 8 years old if they're not ready to. Like, I make sure my kids I want them to be able to answer those questions on their own about whether they feel like they have a relationship with Jesus Christ and whether they want to get baptized. And if they want to wait longer, great. Then we're going to wait longer, and you can take the missionary discussions, or you can learn more about whatever you need to before you make this decision, because I want it to be their decision. All right, another hot take. My children will never have one-on-one meetings with a bishop or any other leader for that matter. And that's not to say that I don't trust the bishops we have. It doesn't matter how well I know a leader or a bishop. I just don't think that is ever necessary. I myself, I was 18 years old and I was an adult, but I had a bishop that I did not know very long, and he had to do my interview before me and Waylon got married. And I was severely uncomfortable with the questions he was asking me, and it felt very invasive, and like he took things in a weird and way too far away. And I remember that being an 18-year-old, and I don't want my kids to ever be in a situation where they're being asked a question that makes them uncomfortable, that they don't understand, and they're confused. And yeah, I think it is always appropriate to have two people in there. And even if my kids, like when Abigail had her baptismal interview with the bishop, Waylon went in there with her. And as she gets older, if she's like, well, she'd rather not me go in or rather not Waylon go in, then she can have one of her young women's leaders go in, or a friend's mom go in, or whoever she wants to go in with her. But I don't think that's needed, and yeah, they're not going to have one-on-one meetings. I want them to learn how to like be able to say no to things, be able to like stick up for themselves, and just having somebody there when they're still learning all those things, I think is very appropriate. Okay, This is a big one. Let's talk about garments. And I hate that I'm talking about this because I hate that garments have become this public commentary thing. They are about your own personal relationship with God, and it feels very inappropriate and weird for people to be constantly commenting on other people's posts about that. And I hate it. I hate it so much. But I felt like this was a big one, and I wanted to share my experience with it. So when I first started wearing them, so if you don't know, in our church, when you go through the temple, which is our a place where we go to get sealed, to there's lots of ordinances that are performed there. And when you go in and go through the temple, we call it getting endowed, you start wearing garments. And it's just something that we wear under our clothing. It's very symbolic, and the whole idea of them is to be a constant reminder of your relationship with God and Jesus Christ. And when I first started wearing them, they were very uncomfortable, very itchy, I did not like wearing them. And my parents grew up very much drilling into our heads that, and this is what they say in the temple, is you're not to alter them, you're not to adjust them for different styles and whatever. And I don't know I think modesty is part of wearing the garment, but I think it goes way deeper than that. And I think people just focus on that aspect of it. And I don't love that. But when a few years after, let's see, how old was I? I don't know, but this was after I had all 4 kids, so this was probably 4 years ago. I started going to the temple once a week with one of my neighbors, and we would wake up at 5 a.m. and go to the temple because we had little kids and we had husbands that worked and all the things. But we would go together, and I remember that year really strengthening my testimony of my garments. And it's a funny thing because I'll say it till I'm blue in the face, but if you want to gain a testimony of something, you're gonna have to put some action into it. And if you're having a hard time with something, don't go to the internet, don't go to go pray about it and go attend the temple. If you're having a hard time with garments, go do some initiatories, go do some endowments, because that is where those testimonies are gonna grow about it. And that's what happened to me. And I appreciate them so much more now. And I want to make this comparison, and I don't know if this is a weird comparison to make, but we're told that our garments are a protection to us. And you hear those stories of yeah, they got in a car accident and they were injured everywhere except for where their garments were. And I do think that it is a protection to us, but I think that's a weird, hard thing to say in that way, because it's oh, well, if I don't wear them one day and I get in a car accident, then I got injured because I happened to not wear them that day. Or it's well, they got in a car accident, they were wearing them, and something bad did happen to them. So I don't know if it's necessarily a protection in that particular way. Maybe sometimes, I don't know. I'm not all-knowing. I'm a very open-minded person, maybe. But I think it more of like a wedding ring, for instance. A wedding ring on my finger is constant reminder to me of the covenants I made with my spouse. And it also is kind of it shows other people of, in a way, my wedding ring is kind of a protection to me for my marriage. And I feel like that's the symbolic thing about garments, is they are a protection because they are a physical reminder to you of covenants you made, and to have that reminder to stand in holy places and to make good choices and to be, I think anything we can do to help turn our focus back to Christ and good choices is always going to add that layer of protection and help. And so that's my view on that. I think we need to stop commenting on other people's choices with those things, because everybody's at a different place in their relationship with God. There's different health issues, there's different whatever it may be. It is I used to, growing up, I feel like, be really hyper fixated on like other people and their modesty, and I don't even notice it anymore, to be quite honest. I don't notice it, I don't care, because modesty to me, I feel like growing up was very taught in a way of clothing aspect, and modesty, it goes way beyond that. Like, it has to do with how we talk to other people, how we treat other people, how we present ourselves. And I want to teach the whole picture to my kids about what it is, because I think two people can dress the exact same way, and one of them could be modest and one of them could be immodest, because it's how they present themselves to a group of people and what their goal is. So that's my spiel on that. Okay, next one. Ministering. My hot take is I actually love ministering, and let's get better at doing this, because why is it that every time ministering interviews comes around, everybody hides and doesn't want any part of it? I have so many thoughts about this. Especially being, like, moving to Utah and being in a Utah ward, when we have like those really studied discussions about why ministering is so hard, and I'm like, this has to be a joke. And let me preface this by saying there have been years in my life when I don't even know who I minister to. I don't know what, and let me back up. If you're not a member of our church, in our church, you get assigned a person that you're supposed to minister to. Sometimes you have a companion, sometimes you don't, and you're assigned to basically serve that person and help them, and if they need something, they know they can reach out to you. And so there's been years when I don't even know who I minister to, I'm not good at it, I don't do it at all, or there's been years when I do it like every 3 months, and then there's times when I'm really good at it and I do it often. And obviously as life's been hard and whatever, sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't, and it just ebbs and flows. But when we get into these lessons and we're like, why is ministering so hard? And listen, I live in Utah. The person I minister to is a block from me. Or in a lot of cases, they live 3 doors down. You're telling me you can't like send a text or like pick them up something from the store when you're already going, or bring them dinner when you're already making dinner, or pick some of their kids up and take them to the park when you're already going to the park? Like, there are endless things to do. And I think about it in this way. I have friends who have gone through different hardships, and there have been times when I'm just like, I want to help them so bad, but they also live 45 minutes from me, and so in order for me to help them, that's like 2 hours of driving commitment on top of doing whatever I'm going to do to help them, and that obviously can put a harder strain on me when I've got 4 kids and got a lot going on here. But what I can do is I can minister to the person that's in my ward, and I can hope that the person in their ward is ministering to them. Because I guarantee the person I minister to has friends and family that they are far away and think, I want to be able to help them. Guess what? I live a block away. That is much easier for me to do than to drive 45 minutes to go help a friend. And not that I shouldn't ever do that, but it gives me a direction of like, okay, this is why it's set up this way. It's because then everybody has somebody that is watching out for them and has them in mind. And in a perfect world, we would all minister and it would all be great and taken care of. And obviously, I know that's not the case. But I'm like, you guys, just freaking start doing your ministering. And I would say, if you're having a hard time doing it, maybe you need to cut some things out. Like, if you feel too busy to even, like, send a text, I don't know. Like, let's get it together. And like I said, I'm talking to myself, too. Because I'm like, get it together. Like, I can put a little more effort into this. I can be a little more, like, come on now. So I believe in that a lot. And I think it creates, sometimes when you move into a new ward, you're like, oh my gosh, like, or you have a new neighborhood or whatever, you're like, there's so many people that need help in different ways, and it can feel overwhelming. And I feel like this is God's way of putting a boundary around, this is the direction I need you to help. This is where you need to put your energy. Because if we all put our energy on that, then everybody would be taken care of. And yeah, I just feel very strongly about that. So get it together, Ashlyn. Okay. Let's talk about callings. I feel like growing up, it was like, you don't say no to callings. Never say no to a calling. And I don't necessarily think that you should up front just flat out say no to a calling. But I think information leads to inspiration. And a lot of times these leaders don't have all the information that you have. And I think about, like, Waylon, when he was in college, they had just started a brand new singles ward. He got called as the elders quorum president, and he was in charge of calling a bunch of people. Obviously, he's doing his best to have the callings be, like, praying about it and trying to figure it out. But also, like, you have to go out and meet people. You have to know a little bit about these people in order to be like, yes, they would be a perfect fit for this, or I think this would be really good for them. And sometimes, like, bishops don't have all the information. And so telling them, hey, actually, my life looks like this right now. You can say it in a way that's like, hey, my life actually looks like this right now. If there are other people you're thinking about and you want to ask them about it, then I think that would probably be really helpful. But if you're still feeling like I am the one that should be in this calling, then I am open to discussing it further. You don't have to flat out say no, but giving them some context and then giving them the opportunity to be like, oh, I didn't know that. Actually, you guys would fit really well here. Instead, maybe we should do that. I just think we don't have to immediately say yes to every single calling, unless you're like immediately like, yes, this is a great fit. But if you're like hesitant and you're like, ugh, I don't know about that, then like discuss it, have a conversation. I just think that I know that saying no to callings is not helpful for like the leaders because they're already like overwhelmed and stressed. But I think that they appreciate people who can give them more context and information. That is maybe a hot take I have, is that you do not have to say yes to every calling. All right. I know that the church and the people in it are imperfect, and sometimes that causes hurt along the way. And I don't believe, like, the people of the church aren't God, they're not Jesus Christ, and we're all trying our best, and learning forgiveness and learning to give grace can go a long way. And still choosing Jesus Christ, still choosing to attend and be part of a community, I think can go a long way in our life. And I don't stay because I think the church people are perfect or because I love the culture. I stay because through all of it, Christ asked me to be there, and I want a relationship with Jesus Christ. I want to have the Spirit lead me in my life, and I think my faith became stronger as I was willing to be uncertain about things and ask questions and, I don't know, study a little deeper and realize that I don't have to know that everything is correct to be part of something. I can add what I do know, and I can provide that service and love, and I think that you're never going to find a church that you 100% everything everybody says in it is like in your heart know for a fact. You can have faith and you can believe like and hope that all of this is helping me become a better person, but I'm still working on strengthening a lot of the things about different parts of the church and what I believe in them. And so anyways, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to my rants about all my different thoughts about church and why I think religion is important in today's world. And I hope you got something out of this. Please share your comments with me. Please DM and reach out. I am fascinated to hear other people's thoughts on this, if they agree, if they disagree. And like always, please subscribe. It really helps. And leave me a review so that more people can find my podcast. But thank you, and let's let some opinions change. Bye!